Now I want to bring in former military assistant to Donald Rumsfeld, Steve Bucci. Steve, thanks very much for joining us. Okay, so we know that the president's foreign policy has been attacked and criticized. What should we be doing now, given all that we know about ISIS, in your opinion?
Well, it's very clear, Maria, that the idea that ISIS is contained might be true if you're only talking about Iraq and Syria, but is clearly not true overall. We need to go after these guys in Iraq and Syria to lower their profile, lower their ability to recruit and get people to do these things elsewhere.
Yeah. You know what was really striking me? The fact that, President Hollande was so fast with his reaction. Immediately, he sent troops. They started bombing specific sites with the U.S.'s help. Now, I ask you this because it's just a question that I don't understand. If we knew exactly where all of those ISIS recruitment centers were in Syria, all of these ISIS headquarters in Syria, why did we need another Paris attack in order to bomb those recruitment centers? I mean, the U.S. knew exactly where they were, right?
It sure seems that way. I don't have a good explanation for it. About 50 to 75% of our airstrikes that go out, American ones, come back without having dropped their ordnance because they don't have an adequate target. But then suddenly we hand the French this incredible target list. I don't understand what the deal is with that. We need to stop the ridiculous rules of engagement for our air campaign, really up the numbers and the vehemence of the attack. We didn't need a Paris attack to kick this off. There's no excuse or reason for what happened.
Steve, didn't the French need that baton, and wasn't that just simply a leadership baton? Obama didn't want it, they took it, and now the French, to me at least, and I'm not the biggest fan of socialism in France, but the reality is now I think they look pretty darn good.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, the French have really picked it up. The problem is, how long can they maintain it? No offense to anybody else in the world, but if there's not a big effort from the United States, these kind of things don't last very long. We're the only ones who can lead the world against an enemy like ISIS. It's just we have a president who doesn't seem willing to do that.
Right, Steve, I did last hour quote from the Wall Street Journal editorial page today, the editorial entitled "France Leads from the Front." Quote, "Strategic patience" is how the Obama administration characterizes its national security policy. And even in the face of these terror attacks, that will not change, will it?
Well, the president has said it won't. I don't see how it cannot change. Strategic patience is a nice intellectual concept, but when you're being attacked, you've got to act.
Maybe they're just waiting for the clock to run out. I mean, maybe they're just waiting for the clock to run out on Obama's presidency so he just doesn't have to deal with it.
Steve,
I think that's clearly part of his plan.
Right. I might guess. I will hazard a guess that they think that this strategy is actually still working, despite the fact that ISIS has expanded its area of attacks, because we haven't had attack here. Until that happens, nothing changes.
Yeah, Steve, my main question to you, is there a way to defeat ISIS without the Assad regime? Because right now we're seeing Russia's coming in and they're clearly supporting Assad's regime. Is there any way to do that, or does the United States finally have to capitulate and say, okay, we're fine with the Assad regime, let's defeat a unified enemy?
I don't think we have to ally with the Assad regime. I think we can go after them using our special operators, local boots on the ground. Is that going to help Assad? Yeah, ISIS is one of his major threats, but we can go after them without de facto propping up Assad, and we should.
Why is the president so adamant about this whole refugee thing? I mean, it's almost like he won't even hear anybody out. And even though it feels like, the average American out there is questioning, well, how are we going to vet everybody who's coming into the country? I mean, of course, you want to be able to say, wow, these people have been, pushed out of their homes. We need to help them. But you have to also consider the vetting process.
Yeah, Ben Rhodes' comment about the vetting process being so extensive, so perfect, that's a bunch of baloney. It's very flawed, very difficult to do, and anybody who says it's a slam dunk is wrong.
Why is it so difficult?
Well, a lot of it is because Arabic, you're translating names to English. There's multiple ways to do that. Arabic naming conventions kind of screw up Western-style databases, and you're coming from a country where there's no baseline that you can receive because it's a failed state. Right. So it is very difficult to do. It's not impossible, and the president shouldn't just blow off the concerns of the governors and the citizens of this country. But he just doesn't like anybody to disagree with anything he does.
Right. If you disagree with his ideas, his approach has always been dismiss and attack. That if you don't agree with him, then you're an idiotic lunatic, essentially.
Right. Yeah, most ideologues think we're all idiots. Right. I mean, most politicians that are ideologues think I'm sure in their eyes I'm an absolute idiot. Happy to be an idiot if that's the alternative.
And I would argue that some people in this country distrust the president's stance on these refugees from Syria because they don't like or do not back his immigration plans. So that has led to some level of distrust among people.
It's going to be the number one issue.
Connect the dots.
Feels like that's going to be the number one issue for the election.
Absolutely.
It's moved from economic issues to national security.
Yeah, I think the question is why aren't we having prudence and patience when it's coming to this refugee crisis as opposed to just shooting from the hip and letting everyone in?
Yep. Steve, thank you. Great insights from you. We appreciate your time this morning, Steve Bucci. Stay